Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Entrepreneurship Matters. My name is Alicia Wilson, and I am so pleased to bring to you an amazing edition featuring two of the leaders, the premier individuals in the film and production industry, Robin Hamilton and Maya Gilmore. I'm going to invite them both to come on camera, and I'm going to give you not do justice to their backgrounds because these are two dynamic women, and you're going to see why in just a minute. But we're going to have a conversation for the next hour, and I promise you, you will be inspired. And this is a big deal for us. It's a big deal to get these two women on Entrepreneurship Matters. So we're very excited. Let me start off. Successful entrepreneurs, successful businesses are not built in a day. It takes a long-term commitment, a lot of grit, multiple failures, and then successes to make it happen. And these two women are no different. Let me introduce, but really I'm presenting them to you. First, Maya Gilmore. Maya Gilmore is an award-winning multimedia producer, documentary filmmaker, and educator. Her work spans networks like NBC, ABC, Fox, ranging from television news to reality and digital content production. She began her news career at Fox 45 in Baltimore as a morning segment producer and produced an annual special report, Champions of Courage. You know, I love Champions of Courage. I was 11 when I got first. Oh, it's so great. She left the newsroom in 2018 to pursue her graduate studies at USC in Los Angeles. She has worked on studies in India, worked on things, continuing her studies in India. She later curated a digital photography exhibit of visuals captured in India that remains on view in Wallace Annenberg Hall. She was the second place winner of the 2018 Annenberg Photography Contest and a moderator for the premiere of an independent documentary, My Gold Lining, by Ivana Espy at Sony Picture Studios. She has expanded her entrepreneurial endeavors since launching the Parkway Agency. She now has a casting division. I'm surprised I'm not in any of your films yet. Okay, it's coming. TPA Casting and the Parkway Foundation, the nonprofit division where she serves as the founding president. In this role, she's honoring her commitment to young people and to service and to the community. She is now leading the foundation's board in programming and curriculum development for youth interested in TV film production in Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. She now serves at the pleasure of the Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott as the Deputy Director of Cable and Communications. She's a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. I gave it to you. That's what we Deltas do. She holds a bachelor's degree in broadcast and integrated media production from Morgan State. She is just a godsend in our community. Thank you, Maya, for being on today. So excited to have you. And we also have the Robin Hamilton of Around Robin Production Company. She is an Emmy Award-winning television host, producer, and moderator for town halls and forums. She is the founder and principal of the Around Robin Production Company, where she creates videos for nonprofits to help with fundraising, marketing, and messaging. She has worked for network affiliates around the country, including Florida, New York, Massachusetts, Washington, D.C., where she is currently based. Her company has also produced 4 short films. You all watch this. Don't worry. I'm going to give them to you so you can get them. In 2015, she released her first documentary, This Little Light of Mine, The Legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer, about famed civil rights activist Fannie Lou Hamer. Dignity and Defiance, a portrait of Mary Church Terrell, is her second documentary, and that was released in 2017. Our Alexandra, her third documentary, was awarded a Virginia Humanities Grant and completed in 2019. And Odessa's Reign was released in 2021 and won Best DC Film for the DC Black Film Festival. You know why I'm so excited for this Entrepreneurship Matters. It is because who we have on today. So welcome, Maya. Welcome, Robin. Thank you so much for being on. And we're going to launch right into the conversation. And everyone knows that you can participate in this in a number of different ways. The majority of you are watching on Facebook. Please put your questions in the chat. As always, those of you who are in Zoom, you can put them in the chat or the Q&A, And those of you who are listening on the phone, put your questions, text them to 22333, type JHUW out in the message, and I'll get all those questions and weave them into the conversation. But I want to start, what inspired you to want to be an entrepreneur? So I'll start with Robin and then Maya. What you're clearly talented, right? Clearly talented.
Thank you.
Brilliant. But what made you want to become an entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, before I even jump in, I really want to thank you for supporting businesses because it is hard. And I love that you start your program off saying that it's not built overnight. It's not easy. It's a lot of hard work. There's setbacks and failures. So thank you for being honest and supportive, because that means the world. So
our pleasure.
Yeah, it really means a lot. So for me, I decided to become an entrepreneur because I felt like I had more to say. I started off as a reporter. It's interesting, Maya and I both have a news background, and in many ways, that's the foundation for if you are a storyteller, if you want to be a storyteller and you want to amplify voices that you don't think get to be heard. And I loved doing that. But in the news cycle, I was very constrained and I was finding myself stuck on the crime and weather wheel. I was constantly talking about crime and weather, and I just didn't feel like I was making an impact. So I'll give you the very truncated version. I really love telling stories. And I also liked the freedom and the independence of what it meant to be an entrepreneur. You get to have a lot of control and agency over how you want to use your talents in the world. You don't have someone dictating what they think you're worth or what they think that you're able to do. So I liked that. So that was just the very beginning part of my journey of what started me to become an entrepreneur.
So it's interesting how you said like you were doing the work, but wanted to drive impact. And that led you to entrepreneurship. Maya, exactly. How about you? How did you say, and full disclosure, Maya and I went to high school together. We met in 9th grade. We were in the same trade in Merville. I feel like I was the first one that told you that you were made for the runway. I feel like I was. So Maya, tell us about your entrepreneurship journey.
I think mine was a little different. I never really had entrepreneurial spirit at all. It wasn't until kind of like the pandemic kind of just pushed me more into that space. I think that when we entered this virtual world, the demand for production became really, really high. And my business partner and I, Shanice Fox, she, we had both been producing in different spaces and we were friends, and we became friends at the Real News Network when we were like producing and doing production there. And then we one day were just like, she did the idea to say like, let's start a production company. We produce together so much. We do a lot of things together and we're friends. Let's just do it. And so it literally just started with pajamas, pizza, and a hotel room in DC on New Year's Eve. And then the Parkway Agency was birthed, and we kind of just set the groundwork that night. Instead of partying and celebrating with everybody, we kind of just set the groundwork that night. And then the plan came in place, and we've been at it ever since.
All great ideas have pajamas and pizza. It's true. It is where you start. So let me go back for you, because we have so many people watching who are saying these two women are top of the game. They are leaders in the field. But like, what took you from the idea? So Robin, you said, I knew that I wanted to do something more impactful. What took you from idea and concept to actually creating a business? What were the steps you went through?
Thank you again for asking that question. And I say this series is very important because I wish I had known you when I was starting out, because people aren't honest about what it takes. If anyone just kind of glosses over, I just overnight and I just decided, they're lying or they're not telling you the honest truth, at least for my journey, because it takes a lot of work. So what happened was I started when I decided I wasn't going to do local news anymore. I left Boston, which was where I was working at the time. I had been the host of a morning show. The morning show got canceled, and then I was back to reporting. And I was covering these awful stories, and I just didn't want to do it anymore. I moved down here, and I started working freelance as a correspondent for the Tribune station at the time. And so I was hosting their Black History Month special. So this was 11 years ago.
Mhm.
And while I was doing that, I would have people occasionally come to me and say, hey, can you help me put this piece together for this organization that I'm doing? I need some video work. And I started to piecemeal this together. And a friend of mine said, why don't you just incorporate? Because, you know, you're already acting like you're a business. People are using your services. And so that's what started me on that path. So I was very intentional about how I was going to become a business. So I went to the Small Business Administration, and they directed me to the small business incubators that are in different areas around town. And I would suggest anyone who is considering starting their own business to do something like that, because they're a great resource. They're often free, and they help you do some basics that you may not have even thought about, like creating a business plan, the importance of finding an accountant or setting up QuickBooks, what kind of entity you want to be. Do you want to be a sole proprietor? Do you want to be an LLC? Getting business insurance, all of these things that are very unglamorous, but they are very essential in terms of the foundation of your business. And if you don't have that, for example, you look like you don't know what you're talking about. So there was one time I just decided I was going to go out and bid for something, and I didn't have my insurance. I was just going to use the insurance of my camera guy, because I thought, well, I'll just kind of, you know, save money that way. And the woman basically just said, you know, you're a joke, you know, you have to have insurance. So there's things that you just need to have in place, and going to a small business incubator is very, very helpful. So for me, I was very intentional about taking the steps, because I wanted to be taken seriously and I wanted my business to be successful.
Absolutely. I just took down 5 steps that you talked about in your giving us your journey. First, you began by working freelance. And so many entrepreneurs come on here and talk about like the substance of what you do is like what you first work on. And so that's what you just talked about, the Black History Month specials. And then started to receive work from others. And at a point, which we'll talk about in a bit, you then realize this is a business. And someone probably recognized it for you, as you said. Someone said, why don't you incorporate? Third, real gem. You went to the SBA and then went to the incubator to really get all of what I would say step 4 was. You talked about the business infrastructure, the business plan, making sure you have the accounting, making sure you have business insurance and all those things, and then being intentional about taking that business forward. I know folks are taking notes. I just gave you 5 of them for you. Maya, what about you? What were the steps you went through from idea, concept, I know you leaving the newsroom, to starting your own business?
Yeah, so I just left the newsroom literally last month. I was also Robin in New England. I was in Hartford, Connecticut. But
Funny.
The Parkway Agency, we just kind of, Sharnice and I are very, we're both very unconventional people. So things just kind of like, I don't think we really had a strategy. Sharnice was really the brains behind how we would use Parkway in a corporate space to kind of fund our passion projects. And so she's like, you know, let's just do government contracting, similar to what Robin said, let's bid on some of these contracts. And we did kind of have more of an idea. We didn't do like an incubator or anything. We just kind of sat with each other and just kind of like read a bunch of stuff, looked at a bunch of small business checklists, and we kind of just did it like boots on the ground our own way, just like reading and figuring it out. And I always make a joke with her, like, you know, I think we have a MBA in business. We have an MBA now because we've just been figuring things out as we went along. But for the most part, we just started with our LLC. And once we started with our LLC, we got that stuff straight and we opened a bank account. That was like one of the first things that we did. And then we got business insurance. That was one of the things that we did. And then we registered for like SBE, MBE, all of that stuff in like procurement systems. So like we did like SAM and we did DC government and Maryland state government. We became a foreign entity in Connecticut and other places so that we could operate our business in those spaces. And then we just kind of just were, you know, just taking all of the steps, just letting the process happen. It didn't happen overnight, but it was we did it pretty rapidly because we knew that we wanted to get the ball rolling. And so we were able to, I would say it was probably about 4 months before we just had all of our stuff, our ducks in a row. And then we started kind of applying, and our first government contract we won. So,
Oh, wow. Huge, huge, huge.
one of the highlights of it. Within 6 months of starting our business, we won a pretty substantial contract with the Maryland Department of Labor to produce commercials for their Maryland apprenticeship training program. So we kind of just, I mean, we were just grinding for like we would sit on Zoom for days. And one of our other partners, our senior administrator, Kimberly Gaines, she was with us in the trenches too. She was also a very, very key part in a lot of the things that we were doing. We were sitting on Zoom for 36 hours with each other, just talking through the processes and the plans and the things that we wanted to do, and writing like proposals and RFPs. And just, we were just like really just grinding, trying to just throw it out there and see what happened. And then we just got lucky. I don't want to say lucky, but you know, we kind of just, you know, I feel like Oprah said, do something. She said one time, do something every day towards your goal. And so that's what we were doing. We were doing something every day toward the goal. And then it just kind of manifested into this thing.
Can I ask a quick question? How did you get the government contracts? Because that's huge. That's a behemoth. That's a real feather in your cap.
I'm about to take my job. I was just about to ask that. How did you get this?
Yeah. No, I'm so sorry. Because honestly, that was one of the things I did. In my business plan, I had a breakdown of small, medium, and large being government contracts. And that's like the behemoth to be able to get in there, because 9 times out of 10, people say you have to know somebody, you can write the best RFP. And if you don't have a relationship, so how did you know what to do? Because you have to go to those contract meetings, when they talk about what the solicitation meetings. So how did you do that?
So Sharna, again, my business partner, who is, I can't say enough, like I have to thank her. I don't even know, I think she's watching or she was trying to log on, but thank you so much, Sharni. Like, she's really, really dope. And she kind of spearheaded the whole process. She was like, this is what we have to do. So she's very administrative and I'm very creative. I'm like the hands-on, I'm the foot soldier, and she will sit at the computer, and I hate doing that. And so she was like, all right, I'm going to sign us up for Emma. I'm going to get us a small business enterprise. I'm going to get us minority business enterprise. I'm going to get us all of these numbers and certifications and stuff like that. And then when the RFP came up, she sent it to myself and Kim, who's our senior administrator. And she said, let's do this. And it was due in like 3 or 4 days. And the RFP was probably like 100 pages long. And so we just kind of broke it down individually, and then we just divided and conquered. And we just literally sat on Zoom. I took a few naps. They stayed up all night. We just wrote it. And we're a team of writers. All of us are writers. And so we just wrote it like very intentionally, we just followed what they said. We talked about how we would actually, the scope of work, that's like the technical proposal, that's like the main portion of it. So we just went line by line, and we just kind of wrote in that we would honor this contract by doing this, how we would do it, how we were qualified to do it. And we made it pretty. And we proofread it for 1,000 times, and then we just sent it in. So it's really just looking at the scope of work and seeing how you can actually provide the service and fill the need that they have. And so I think that collectively, myself, Kimberly, and Sharnice, I think with our experience, our work samples, our CVs or resumes, I think it was just, and then writing the technical proposal to align exactly with what they need. And a lot of it, honestly, Robin, is just regurgitating what's already in the RFP. It's a lot of regurgitation. So it's just kind of like, you just say the same thing over and over again, use their language, and kind of just add, some deliverables and outcomes. And then it was.
Good for you. That's huge.
And that in the certifications, which I know we talked about on here, Entrepreneurship Matters, being really critical, especially when you're trying to distinguish yourself from the others. You have people, we have progressed, I think, far enough that we have people who are really thinking about like who is the diversity of who's actually going to be producing the work. So really kudos to like getting those certifications early on, because that it's so critical to the success. I love
Oh, I'm
oh,
sorry.
no,
And
you're good.
I want to mention about the certifications is that it's important because if you submit for an RFP and you don't win the bid, you know, somebody else wins a bid. A lot of times these larger contracts, like we wrote one for the State Board of Elections in August, we didn't win the contract, but it had a 30% MBE requirement. And so whoever won that contract, they are required to outsource part of 30% of that contract to a minority business. And so that's another good way. That MBE certification will also, even if you don't win the contract, it'll still allow you to be part of the contract or have some portion of the contract because you are part of the MBE certification. And because the process is so kind of long and tedious, a lot of people do not go through the process because it's just, they just don't want to do the work. So I definitely think that that's a great certification to have.
I'm just going to second that really quick. I totally agree. And it is a lot of work and it's intimidating because you have to submit everything. And you also go through an interview. So you have, not only do you have to submit, you know, your taxes and your proof of work and your dates of incorporation and your bank statements and all of that, then you have someone who comes to your house or your place of business and they assess whether it's a legitimate business. So they definitely vet you, but it is worth it because it's a great marketing tool. So I completely agree with you, Maya and Alicia.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's a real gem for people, not realizing that really that's a game changer. I was doing a panel in DC on Monday, and that was a question that was posed. Is the certification worth it? And as you both articulated, it absolutely is. I love this question that we have a viewer that on Facebook put in, which is, how did you, and it goes into the government contracting, but how did you go about building your clientele? Right. So you took us through the steps of starting your business. That just because you have a business doesn't mean people are going to utilize your business. And so how did you become the company people would choose to engage and work with? So I'll start with you, Robin, and then Maya.
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely, when I went to the incubator, my mentor at the time told me, okay, you've got to network. And so, but you have to be strategic about how you're networking, because at first I was just going everywhere and collecting every card and doing all of this. And I was getting burnt out, and it was just not strategically wise for me. And ironically, the way I got my business was through networking, but on a very granular level. So for example, a girlfriend of mine worked in the affordable housing space. And she said, oh, a friend of mine she's the executive director of this association for nonprofit housing development. And she really is looking for someone. She's in a bind. She puts me in touch with her. I was in my apartment building in Silver Spring, and the executive director of the soup kitchen, Shepherd's Table, just struck up a conversation with me because she happened to live there. She said, oh, what do you do? And I said, oh, I happen to do this. She says, oh my gosh, we need someone to do our fundraising video for us. And that happened. Another time I was screening my documentary about Fannie Lou Hamer, and the executive director of an organization that provides pro bono legal services for residents in DC saw the film and came up to me and said, I was really moved by that film. We need to profile our clients and their success stories. Are you available? So for me, it was very much a granular level, just from being out there and talking to people. Me going to every SBA or chamber meeting was not really wise. And going to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, that really wasn't my audience. And so I wasn't strategic about my audience. I also got on directory. So an MBE directory, I did that. I actually went to an event where, you have to compete for bids, and you're doing the whole, where you're learning about the bid, as you know, Maya, how that works. And I happened to, me and this other production company, neither one of us got the bid, but I now work with the editor from that production company. She's a phenomenal editor, and she's been one of the people that I've worked with regularly. So, you have to network, but you have to network in a strategic way. Just kind of spraying yourself out there doesn't really work. But anyway, that's how I got my first couple of clients.
No, I love how you said that, because what people sometimes think is like networking is just like random. It really isn't. It's really a thoughtful process, and you're thinking about who's your client, who could, and you go to where they are, and like you said, you build a portfolio. Maya, how about you? How did you build your clientele?
I would just simply say relationships. Like
Mhm.
I'm huge on relationships, and Sharnice and I talk about it all the time. She always says I'm socially awkward and I'm the social person. I've always been popular, and especially in like Baltimore, and then Sharnice is popular in Baltimore. And just a little bit of her background. Sharnice, she produced a really cool documentary called MLK Streets Project, where she took kids all over the country to document like streets in LA named after Martin Luther King, to kind of see if those streets were living up to his vision. And so that documentary, even to this day, I think it's 10, 11 years later, she just did something with the BBC, and that's still kind of having an impact. And then she recently,
I remember that.
a few years ago, her film Love.com was on Netflix. So she's very popular in networking in the film production space in DC. And then my relationship spanned from not just Baltimore, Maryland, DC, but also LA, because I went to grad school there. And, so I have friends out there. So I have friends that are calling me saying, like, one of my friends, she was a production manager for Revolt TV. And one day she just called me up and said, hey, I have some productions in New York. You're in the East Coast. Can you and a crew go capture this stuff for Revolt Summit? So that was just based on a relationship. We currently have a contract with Comcast, and that was another relationship. Somebody I used to produce with at Fox, she went over to Comcast, and she's like, was the creative lead. She's since moved on now, but we're still managing that contract. And she just was like, hey, I love what you all are doing. Here's some commercials that I have coming up. Would you be interested in producing and, doing production? And so just basically relationships, I think that's really important. And I pride myself in managing relationships well, especially relationships that I may need, later on, or I pride myself also on being a resource for people. So I think being a resource for people and then managing relationships and people properly, I think that has been one of the things that Sharnice and I have done well. And so a lot of our relationships, a lot of our work just comes from word of mouth or friendships or people referring us, because there is something to be said about being a Black woman in this production space, right? One of the things that's really important is that we amplify Black creatives in this space and women. And so one of the things Sharnice and I always do, we all make sure that we staff women of color on our set. So we use a Black women DP for a lot of things. We use Black women editors. And so that's really it, relationships. I think that's important. I think people underestimate the power of relationships, just friendly conversation. Really, like I said, Sharnice and I, we're very unconventional in everything that we do. Like Sharnice woke up one day on like a Thursday and was like, hey, I want to make this short film. What are you doing? I was in Connecticut, and I was like, I don't know. And next thing I know, I look on Instagram, she's pulled the whole crew together, wrote a film, and produced it in like 48 hours, a short film. So, we're just very unconventional in our practices, and we just kind of blow where the wind, that's our personality. Like, we're not people that, we're not going to put it down on paper. And some people that works for them. Like when we have to be super strategic because we're both creative in mind or artsy in mind, the strategy holds us back a little bit. We're kind of very free in our practices. So, being strategic works for some people. And there are areas where we're strategic. We're partnering now, one of our producers, Stephanie Yates, she's strategic. She's like, Maya, we need a social strategy. We need this strategy. We need that strategy. And I'm like, I'm just going to post it and that's it, But there's a need for those things because strategies are in place for a reason. But Sharnice and I are completely just wow west sometimes, but it works for us. So
yeah, and there can be a strategy in even being unconventional, right? That is a choice that you all made, and it's working, right? So that's the strategy that you've employed that is working. So I think as we think about for the viewers and the folks watching, there are many, as they used to say for the Roman Empire, all roads lead to Rome. And really it's about figuring out what works for you as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, and what actually aligns with what you do. I'd love to get this question answered, which came in from one of our viewers that's listening on the phone, which is, what's the piece of advice that you've ever received about production or entrepreneurship that you say, you know what, that climbs to the top. That was the best piece of advice that I've received thus far, because we have long ways to go in our journeys. But what's one piece of advice, Robin, that you would say really stuck with you and is something you say, that was really what made the difference?
It's funny. It's interesting. It's so nice to have both of us on this panel, because our journeys are we're so different in some respects. For me, flying by the wind, it didn't work for me, because that's initially how I started my business. So for the best piece of advice for me is to be organized from top to bottom, be organized from A to Z. And I'll tell you why. On production days, and maybe this is from my days of being a reporter and being an anchor, is when you're an anchor and a reporter, your deadlines mean everything. And timing means everything. So you miss your time slot, you're late on a deadline, that's a problem. If you have a paying client and you don't have information to them ahead of time, that's a problem. That will be your last time you have them as a client. So be organized, and be organized from top to bottom. So know where your crew is going to be. Tell them where they're going to be. Tell them about parking. Tell them about everything. I mean, all the things that are really unglamorous, but it makes a difference, because the day that you are on set, something inevitably is going to go wrong. And so if you have things in place and something goes wrong, you're prepared in a way, because you're like, okay, I had that, but you know what? We're going to be able to pivot, because I have something else that maybe I can pull out of my back pocket. So being organized is really, really important. It just allows you to pivot, if you need to. You're not scrambling. So that was the best piece of advice, even right down to when you interview people. As a journalist, you don't give people questions ahead of time. That's an absolute no-no. But when you're interviewing a client, say the head of an organization, and they're nervous, you give them questions, but then you research a little bit, and maybe you talk to your crew ahead of time. So by the time the person comes in, and if they're nervous, the crew kind of knows a little bit about them, and I know a little bit about them, and we can have a conversation, and that can help make them a little bit more comfortable. But again, that just goes down to preparation. You want to be prepared. Anyone who shows up and is like, oh, we just threw this together, I'm guaranteeing you're going to go over budget, and your day is going to be a mess. You may have one really good day, but you're probably going to be over budget, and you're going to be a mess.
Yeah. No, that's so true. It is true. We Entrepreneurship Matters, we are very organized behind the scenes. To be able to do this every week, and you're right. When we slip a little, we can feel it. It feels like an earthquake. Y'all don't feel the earthquake, but we feel the earthquake when it happens. Yeah.
Well, that's the point, though. That's a great point, though, too, because you're prepared. Even if there is an earthquake, you can still make it look smooth on the surface, because you have some level of preparation that you've done. So you may be scrambling back there, but you know how to make it look seamless. And that's what you want. That instills confidence.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Maya, how about you? What's the best piece of advice you've ever received about production or entrepreneurship?
I agree with Robin, and I want to make a clarifying statement for viewers. Statement. Flying by the seat of your pants creatively is completely different from running your business. And so just like Robin said, production, you have to be organized, because production time is money. And that is 1000% true. So making sure that you are, we have all kinds of things in place, because like I said, Sharnice, she's a certified Scrum Master. She's all about agile practices, and we're working on some things to implement that into production. we have Trello boards and project management systems. We have Bonsai where we track invoices and proposals and all that kind of stuff. So our clients definitely are getting us the most organized version of us because we have to do that, right?
Mhm.
We just have to keep the business in order. So that's one of the important things. So I agree with Robin 1000%. Call sheets. Where's the hospital? Who's the contact? Who's the point of contact on set? Everybody's information, craft services, the whole gamut of everything that you need. So those traditional practices, remaining organized, 1000%. But another piece of advice was just don't rob your business. A lot of people, entrepreneurs, you'll get the contract, you'll get the money, it'll be in your account. You're like, wow, I have all of this. It's not yours. It is not yours. It is the business. So when you think you are $250,000, $500,000 richer, you are not. You are still broke. Because that money is used to run the business. And then you want to always make sure that you're not robbing the business because you want to make sure that you have things in place for emergencies. You want to make sure that you can have working capital. You want to make sure that you're able to pay people and pay them on time. Production is tricky. We do net 30, net 60 and things like that. So you want to make sure that you always have those things in place. And so we use a payroll system. We use ADP. Because it just keeps us organized. We process payroll every 2 weeks, the taxes, all the things. It keeps our tax stuff in order so that we remain compliant. So definitely being organized is really important on your business side. Creatively, yeah, you can definitely fly by the seat of the pants. You can have relationships and just, that stuff can just happen. But when it comes to running the business, you always want to make sure that that stuff is straight and organized. If somebody asks you for your taxes, you can furnish your taxes. If somebody asks you for bank statements, if you're applying for a loan, you can say, hey, I'm revenue generating. This is how much money we made last year. Here's our profit loss or whatever. So you want to make sure that you are organized in that capacity and not robbing your business. Because that's just important how it looks when people are asking you for financial records and things like that. And just pay yourself. Pay yourself, be fair for the work that you're doing, but it's not your money.
I love how you said that because you're right. People get contracts and then you realize in the bank account is misleading. It's very misleading because that's gross. It's not net. And you are just preaching really because you are working for the business, but the business has a lot of people that are working for it, and you have to be conscious of them. Robin, I see you wanted to get in on that.
I'm just saying that is outstanding advice. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I got, and I wish I had gotten it earlier, was to take a real critical look at your bank account. And that's, and understanding how to really read your profit and loss statement. Because I had someone I went to, again, I constantly do business incubator classes. If I see a little free webinar on something, I like to constantly learn about just how I can make sure my business is healthy. And one of the things they said was, always do that financial audit. And I'm not just talking about the annual, assessment for your taxes, but it's a monthly critical look at what your bank, what you're doing. Because as you said, your bank statement is very different than the health of your financial health of your company. So understanding your profit and loss statements and net profits and cost of goods sold and what all of that is. And I didn't really appreciate that until, the past 2 years. So even though my business was profitable, I didn't really look at how much better it could be. So that's a great, you both made really good points.
And also it makes you understand, especially the financial piece, it makes you understand why when we work for companies or organizations, why they say no to certain things. It may just be a monitor or a light stand, but it's like, this is a $300 light stand. This is a $10,000 lens. Like, how does it make sense for us? How will it increase the value of our business or the production value or the quality of the product that we put out? Does it make sense? And so sometimes we want, like I know Sharnice and I always want toys and gadgets. And she's like, no. But Sharnice always wants to produce a movie randomly. And I'm like, no. So sometimes we meet in the middle with the things that we want, the shared things that we want to, and how they're going to align with our overall goals. So when you're making purchases or you're spending money, your business's money or you're making purchases for the business, it has to make sense. And so
yes. And I'm sorry. And I can tell you're
Look, I'm just like getting to be here. Like I get to observe this whole thing. I get to just sit and watch.
well,
They're
no,
gonna kill me because I'm not getting. They're gonna kill me.
I just so appreciate that. That's just such a good point. I just want to jump in and say that's a really good point, because also it goes to pricing, because there have been times, especially when I started saying yes to projects, initially you just take as much business as you can get. And I was agreeing to projects where I was losing money if I really assessed. Like I had a crew with me. So I think you're a DP, right, Maya? You do camera work. Yeah. So I don't do that.
Hold on. What's a DP for?
Oh, I'm sorry. Director of photography, camera person, cinematographer. So, anyway, and he's phenomenal, one of the people that I work with. And he did a wonderful favor for me, and he gave me a great discount. But after, and I paid him, but after I looked at the final contract, I was losing money. It did not make sense for me when he's bringing all these lights and a $10,000 camera, and they're paying us, peanuts. And so you have to really be careful. Just for me, I wish someone had said, you don't need to say yes to everything. And people a lot of times will try to lowball you because they see you're producing great quality and they think they can get something for free. No, you're not going to lose business, the kind of business you want when you have standards.
No, I'd love to just stay there for a moment, because both of you are bringing out a point that many of our entrepreneurs, someone's laughing at me, like sitting in here watching the show while I'm like moderating the show. It's so funny. I know y'all laughing at me this week, but these are here. I'm just taking this all in as a moderator. But the question around business and pricing your services, and you are creatives, you are people, it is probably hard to price what you do. You probably at some point earn less than what you should have been earning, charge less than what you should have been charging. And it's also a part of your love, like you love what you're doing. And so that's, for many of the entrepreneurs that I get to interview, it's really hard. So as you talk about like your businesses and the pricing of your services and becoming discriminating in terms of who's going to be your clientele, what can you take us through that process for it that you went through? And then also, I'll start with you, Maya, and then take us through like what's the advice you give to the others watching who are saying, I'm in the same predicament. I don't know what to charge for what I'm doing. How do you get to the price point? Maya, I'll start with you and then Robin.
And I'm only eager to answer this question because I'm very, very passionate about that, because I think that people underestimate the cost of creative services. Mm-hmm. And they don't respect what goes into the craft. People think, and that's because people do. Now in 2022, everybody has a camera. And so people are getting a camera, they're getting a gimbal, and they're running and gunning, and they're producing these souped up edited videos for $5. I'm here to tell you, we are not producing a video for $5. And so I agree with Robin when she says, losing money on a project, because that's trial and error. Sharnice and I have done that too. One, we've done a lot of things for free, because sometimes when you're just trying to get your name out there and you're trying to build your portfolio, you'll do a lot of work just to build your portfolio so people can see what you do. But then once you are fresh out of free and you're moving into charging your rates, you have to be strong in honoring your rates. There are some passion projects and projects.
I think Maya went. Maya is great. We couldn't. You went froze on us for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I said there are some projects that you're just passionate about and you'll just do them for little money or no money. But then there are projects that you're just like, this doesn't align with my business. This isn't worth the time that I'm going to put into it. And then I would be operating at a deficit. Do not start operating your business at a deficit. It is okay to say no. Somebody asked me a couple of years ago, probably like 2 years ago, and it was a friend and I love her. She's like, hey, can you produce this promo video for this nonprofit school? And I was like, okay, what's the budget? She said they have $500. Nothing I can do for you for $500. I can't even pull a camera out for $500. The lens that I'm going to use is $10,000. So there's nothing. You can go get a cell phone and I can send one of my students and they will produce something phenomenal for you because that's what they do. I cannot do that. And so the challenge is, even when in academia, this is the second part, in academia, parents would come in and tour because I taught in Morgan State. And they would say, oh, my son wants to be a YouTuber, but I know they don't make money. And then when I break down to parents how I've had an editor that I pay $1,000 a day, which is often more, 3 days of editing, that's $3,000. That's more than some people are paid a month. Yeah. So when I'm breaking those costs down, people are like, oh, you can make money as a producer, you can make money as an editor, you can make money as a DP. So it is a lucrative business if you are going into it the appropriate way. For me, I honor my rate, honor my work, respect my work. If I say my rate is $1,500 a day, that's just it. Now, there are some times I will work with people like we work with another DP, Al Morgan, incredible. He's one of my colleagues at Morgan. And there are some projects that we have to have larger budgets and we pay his rate fully, but because the relationship and we're paying him consistently, there are some projects with a lower budget. And he's like, all right, don't worry about it because we have you on payroll. So that relationship, we nurture and honor that relationship. So for the most part, I would say honor like your rate is your rate. And if people can't pay it, I'm not saying just write it off and move on. There are times where you negotiate and there's times where you know that it's just not worth your time. So I think that first looking at standard production rates, and if you're union or non-union, looking at that and being fair, to yourself. Yeah. So that's pretty much my how we price out. We always look at, okay, what's the union rate? What's the non-union rate? And then we'll say, okay, we can pay that or we can't. And then we look at their rate. When people come to us, we look at their rate or we look at our rate and we say whether we would negotiate or not work on the project at all.
Good point. Robin, how about you? How did you come to your pricing? How do you think about that?
Those are all excellent points. I mean, very, very similar. And it's funny, when I was talking about networking, I had gone to a chamber event and this one woman had asked me what I charge for videos. And, she had said something like $500. And I tried not to laugh. And I said, no, you need to start with like 5,000. I said, because, if you're talking about someone to professionally shoot it, edit, you want it produced, you want it written, you want to know the location, you want to have all of this done. And she just shuddered. And I just thought, well, that's not even worth having a conversation. But I will say that some of it is, and you made a good point about this, Alicia, in the beginning, when it is your passion and you're so excited about doing it and you're so committed, you do start to make allowances and you do, and Maya, as you said, you do things for free initially. And I think I let that go on just a little bit too long. And I'm not saying the free part per se, because I did do my share of that, but I'm just talking about what allowances you make in terms of negotiating your rate. And I do think, you make a great point, Maya. A lot of people think, well, I just have a camera and I can just go do this and, oh, it's no big deal. And I'm thinking, okay, that's fine. But when we're talking about a cohesive, clear, professional looking piece of media content, that's not, that $250 isn't going to cut it. And part of the problem is, everybody does think that YouTubing is the way to go. And so there's just a very different standard. But I had to start doing that. I had to start really looking at what other production companies were charging. And I did, I did not give myself enough credit for what I was worth and the experience that I was bringing to the table. Because there's certain people out there who have no problem charging a ton of money and they may not have a fraction of the experience. And so I think some of that is confidence and really valuing what you're worth. And I had to do a hard look at, why am I not valuing what I'm bringing to the table more? This is crazy.
That's right. I mean, the reality of what you all are saying, we've had so many entrepreneurs say, you realize at a certain point, everyone's not your customer and everyone is not meant to have your services. And there is a market. for whatever. There's a McDonald's and there's a prime rib, and it's just two different marks. And it is just, what do you do you want or what do you, and not knock to McDonald's, we love you as a sponsor, but I'm just saying, like, it is two different, they're both value, but what do you want, and who, and you're not going to get prime rib for McDonald's prices. You're not going to get,
I
buy
just
you
want
have something.
just an example, because some people, when we're talking about budgeting and the cost of projects, and I always like to use this as an example because it's not an extreme example. It's a very normal example. Sharnice and I produced a commercial for the National Education Association. This was about 3 years, 2019, for the National Education Association. And it was a commercial to honor education support professionals. And the commercial is 3 minutes long. You can view it on YouTube. It's called Graduation Day. It was $120,000.
Wow.
It was 3 days of production. We had about 120 people on set for one of those days, extras and casting, but $120,000 for 3 minutes. And they have to do this promotion every year. And so that speaks to a lot to the people you have on set, the equipment that you're using, the vision, whether you want a drone, the set design, all of that stuff for a 3-minute commercial. And so I think people really underestimate, when you're looking at television, how much actually goes into 30 seconds and a minute and things like that. It's a lot of work. Everybody thinks it's fun and it's cute and it's glamorous because you get to play with cameras or you get to be around celebrities, or, they think, but it is a lot of work. It is hard work. We're in production today, and from the time I woke up, everything has literally gone wrong. From the time
It's about to go right. It's about to go right.
Yes, I hope so. But from the time I had type and drape, staging not showing up, sound not responding, everything has kind of, but it's all coming together now. But initially I'm like stressed out, like, how am I going to do this? But it's happening.
Make it happen. And I think that both of you, you just demonstrate that there's so much that goes into it, and that's where the pricing comes in, right? You have so much to be able to make it look beautiful and pristine and edit it and curate it in just the right way, that it's so much that you have to charge for that. I have a few questions. Don't worry, everybody. I'm going to get to them, but we have confirmed that Oprah's watching. So I'm going to ask this question, and we're going to get to maybe like 2 more if I get to get them in. So what can individuals like Oprah, individuals that bank account look very different than Oprah's, and influence is different than Oprah's, how can we all support not only the survival, the existence? Let me say this. How can we support the creation, the existence, the survival, the thriving, and the multiplication of businesses like yours? And so what should we all be doing? Like what 1 or 2 things that we all can do to ensure that we have more around Robin productions and Parkway agencies from our community proliferating? So Robin, what's your 1 or 2 pieces of advice?
I would just say support where you can. And I have appreciated that so much more now that I'm out and doing my own business. So, I have my 4 documentary films. Go to aroundrobin.com and you can see them, and people can purchase them. So my Fannie Lou Hamer film, for example, has been all over the country. And I would love to have someone like an Oprah or a media company support those films. I just think being supportive, that really is what a business needs. I was on a business incubator session with a woman who started a makeup brand, and I just bought some of her brushes right away, because you know what it feels like, so I'll go to that screening, I'll buy that makeup brush, these are small things, but they keep you going. Because, what I've noticed is that in many respects, the film industry is very insular, and the media industry. And I've noticed particularly around, we love our many people, but really a lot of white men look out for each other very, very much. And so there's a lot of, oh, I'll help you get this and I'll put this in it, and I heard this great quote about like, you don't even know where the starting line is if you don't even know the race is being run. And so a lot of times, I didn't even know where to look or where to start or who to talk to. And so I think if people are in positions of power, just please support people who are the real deal, who are really pounding the pavement and fighting the good fight, because I think we all deserve to have a seat at the table or to create the support to create our own table.
No, I love that the point you just made about what we can all do from the seat that we sit in. And someone said we have Maya, repeat the name of the NEA documentary that's on YouTube, and then we're going to go back. Then I want you to answer that question.
The commercial is called Graduation Day.
Graduation Day, excellent. And then Maya, what about you? What's your Oprah and all of the rest of what's the advice you give to us?
So if like people in leadership, like if Oprah was watching, I would say,
if she is.
Oh, is she? Okay. Yeah. Well, hey, Oprah. I would just say providing more access to opportunities. I think that's really, really important. I think one of the other things is always in my career, I've done a lot of things. I'm like, wow, like even looking at some of the stuff that I left off of the bio, I'm like, this is crazy. But just like understanding that when you are a small business or you're starting in a creative space, you are told no so much. Mm-hmm. And I've been told no so much, especially early in my career. And so I think it's important for people on those higher levels to create more of those opportunities, more access, more opportunities for people who are, essentially on a smaller level. Like Parkway is only 1.5 years old, but we are doing high quality stuff. And we're doing it at a grassroots level. We're doing it with our blood, sweat, and tears. And it's a lot of work for it to be two of us. Great. We're grateful that we have support from, of course, Kimberly Gaines and some of our vendors and partners that we use. But for the most part, it is Sharnice and I paving a way, doing all the work. I'm a PA sometimes, especially during the pandemic, we were working on skeleton crews. And so just creating opportunities and access for us to actually have those elevated platforms to show that we are talented too. A lot of times people don't notice until you blow up and then everybody wants to call you. And it's like so many talented storytellers and visual storytellers out here, writers and screenwriters. Like Sharnice is a phenomenal screenwriter. She has incredible ideas. She thinks far out the box. A lot of her stories they have some type of socially conscious message to them. And, she's not gotten her break as a writer. She wrote her own film and she's like, you know what, let's just do it ourselves. And so
now Oprah's heard about Sharnice. We have a huge platform. This is going just straight to her. Let me ask you this before I get to my last question, which is, how can people get in contact with you? How can they follow you? How could they utilize you as they watch today and they say, you know what? I need Robin. I need Maya to be a part of what I'm about to do. How are they going to get in contact with you? Robin, what are the ways we can get in contact with you?
The best way is just to go to my website, Around Robin, AroundRobin.com, AroundRobin.com. And you can email me, you can check out my films, my very first one, Fannie Lou Hamer, This Little Light of Mine, but all of my films and all of my services. It would be great to get to know you and just to have you reach out. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and you can reach me that way too, at Around Robin.
Excellent. Maya, how do we get in contact with you?
So Parkway, we're on Instagram. So parkway.agency on Instagram, and Parkway is PKWY. It's the abbreviation for Parkway. And then of course, parkway.com, pkwyagency.com. So that's pretty much how people can reach us. Also info@parkwyagency.com, again, because people will call us PKWY. but it's Parkway, and that's our brand story. Sharnice is from DC, I'm from Baltimore. It's the road between two cities. So that's how we established Parkway, but it's PKWY Agency. So yeah, that's it.
Excellent, excellent. Y'all are getting so many shout outs. I hope you get to see the chat on Facebook after this. Both of you have gotten so many like hand highs and all sorts of things. So please go watch that. Oh, we're out of time. Oh no.
Oh, no.
Let me say this. This has been one of the most inspiring Entrepreneurship Matters we have had. It has been an honor to have you, Robin and Maya, on today. And thank you for all you do. And thank you in advance for what you will do. And we are rooting for both of you because we know the best days for you both are ahead of you. So just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you. You've been so supportive, and for everyone in the chat. I mean, and really, Alicia, this is really nice. As Maya said, there's so many rejections. It can be a tough road, a lonely road, a challenging road, and to have you kind of lift us up in this way means a lot. And everybody in the chat, Christine Waterman, thank you for the shout out about my film. And Marjorie, that's my cousin. Thank you for watching.
That's your cousin. All right, we got fam on here. We got fam
Thank
on
you.
here. We love it. We love it. We love it. Thank you both. Really appreciate you. Everyone, come back next week. We're going to be all about furniture. Two entrepreneurs who are making furniture in our community. Nick Modea of Monkey in the Metal. I love the name of that company. And Daryl Patterson of D. Patterson Design Studio. You do not want to miss them. Follow us on JH Connects on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Thank you to all of our partners, Johns Hopkins University, Johns Hopkins Health System, Bloomberg Philanthropies, Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business, the Mayor's Office of Small Minority Women-Owned Business, and Hopkins Local. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.